Hi and welcome back. This is Jennifer McGuire. Today I am sharing with you more ideas for using your gel press. I did a beginning video on gel press with stencils a few weeks ago, so check that out if you haven't already. There's a lot of information there. Today I'm focusing on using a gel press with your die cuts. This is an incredible way to get more out of your dies, get more out of your inks, and create really unique looks. It is excellent for mass-producing backgrounds and elements for your cards. Now, I am going to do this a little bit differently this time. In this video, I'll do all of my backgrounds, lots of different techniques for using your die cuts with your gel press. And then in my next video, I will take those backgrounds, step them up a bit, and show you creative ways to use them on cards, and share some other tips along the way. So today is all about the background techniques. So I have a gel press and I lay mine onto my MISTI stamping tool so I can rotate it around. This is a 5x7 gel press, but any size or shape would work just fine. I also will be using Distress Oxide inks today. I really like that these have this pigment property and a dye property that work really well on gel presses. You can use paints, but I don't have any, so I just like to use the Oxide inks and I love the results. You will also need some type of brayer, and I will link to some options below. I'm going to jump right in now. Again, if you didn't get my first gel press video, check it out on the top right first. Okay, so let's get started. I'm putting some Distress Oxide inks right onto the gel press. So I just dab it on there and try not to cross-contaminate between the ink pads. Notice there are gaps between, totally fine, it doesn't matter one bit. This is Wilted Violet, Shaded Lilac, and then I brought in some picked raspberry here and there too. So you just want to put color down. There is no rhyme or reason to how you do this. For these first examples, I'm putting quite a bit of ink down. I pretty much covered the gel press. And then later I'll show you softer ones. Then I just take a brayer and I go back and forth here and there to blend them a bit. I then take a piece of white cardstock. You could even use printer paper and other types of papers for this. I just lay it right down, rub around the gel press, and then watch the beautiful result that you get. If you would prefer a smooth blending across your print, you could do, instead of going back and forth, just go in one direction a few times. And then in my other video, I show that. But I prefer the look of this, so I'll be doing that in this video, just kind of going back and forth with the brayer in different directions. So that's a quick review of creating a basic gel press background, the way that I like to do. Now let's step it up with many different techniques of incorporating die cuts and dies. Many of my prints today use the Simon Says Stamp Snowflake Frame die. Now this is a window die that you can use on the front panel on your card, but there are also these snowflakes included. To cut the little dies out, you need to cut those little metal strips. And here's a tip that I like to do. I think this is really important. You don't want those little metal pieces to fly across the room when you snip them. So what I do is I snip them apart over a baby wipe. That'll catch it. And when I put the snippers on, I kind of hold it there but don't press completely. If you snip completely, the piece will go flying. If you just hold it there and bend the die back and forth, I'll show it again here, bend the die back and forth, it'll eventually just break it off. And you won't have that little tiny little wire piece flying across your room. Then you can put them all in your little baby wipe, fold it up, and throw it away. That way nobody gets hurt, nobody gets any little poked fingers, and it's a handy trick. Okay, so I'm applying some ink to my clean gel press. I did Wilted Violet, Picked Raspberry. Notice I did not do a great job with coverage. It's okay. Also notice I didn't clean my brayer from last time. It's okay too. The colors will just add to it. Now I'm taking some die cuts that I made from the dies that I showed you. Now these are just cut from white cardstock. You could use scraps for this if you want, but I used white cardstock so that I can use these die cuts afterwards because they'll ink up nicely. So I'm laying a bunch of these die cuts right on there. Once you lay them down, don't move them because it'll mess up the ink. Then you can take a piece of cardstock or paper and lay it on top and press firmly all around. And this will give you a really bold looking print. So here I'm laying it down. I like to use my brayer to press along the back. Here I'm wiping off some of the excess ink, but remember you could have put that excess ink onto another piece of cardstock and die cut it from it later. And there you can see the fun print that we get. Now I want to show you what this looks like cut down, and I'll show you that in a minute because often I like the prints better when I trim them down. Okay, so now I can remove those little die cuts and look at the beautiful inking that's on them. I'll give you a closer look at those later too. I like to use my tweezers to carefully remove them so they don't move around as I pick them up because I'm going to get another print from this. So I remove all the die cuts, then I take another piece of white cardstock, lay it on top, and this will give me a very light impression or very light print because we removed most of the ink, right? But it's really ghost-like looking. It is the coolest look. It's hard to see in the video, but there is a soft pinkish purple ink in the background, and this is nice for a soft background on a card that's not too distracting, and you can add anything you want on top. So here are those two backgrounds. I like to trim off the excess. It makes it look cleaner, and I can kind of start planning out how my card will look, which remember we'll do in my next video. And there you can see that second print that we get. And I have all those inked die cuts I can use as accents on these cards. Okay, let's do another example. This time I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Dainty Snowflake die set. This is a beautiful large dainty snowflake, and then the shadow die is included too, which I think will be really helpful when we turn these into cards. So this time I'm using some blueprint sketch, some wilted violet, and then we're going to just kind of blend that together. This time I'm using a smaller brayer. It doesn't matter what you use. Notice there's no rhyme or reason. I just try to go over all of the areas in different directions. That gives that print look, but again, you could do a blended look if you prefer. Now I'm laying down a bunch of snowflake die cuts again. This is a new set, so it's all white cardstock, and I included that large snowflake too. Now I'm taking a print that I did earlier. So I had just done a basic print like I showed you in the beginning of the video, and I'm putting that on top. I like to layer my prints up. That way there aren't these bold white spots like in the last example. Here you can see I'm just rubbing my hand around. I like to keep one hand still and the other move so I don't shift. Or you can rub over it with a brayer. It's totally up to you. Now look at that. I love that tone on tone look. The snowflakes are lighter and there's darker color around it. It's just a beautiful look. Now I can remove my snowflake die cuts and save those for later on. You can see they're beautifully inked. And now we'll do another print. Remember, there's a little bit of ink left, that ghost-like look. This time I have a pre-inked piece. So this isn't plain white cardstock this time. So this already has ink on it, you can see, and I'll lay it down. It's actually the first print I made in this video. Now I'll rub over this with my brayer. You can press firmly with your hands if you prefer, and then check out this. So it's very subtle, but you can see those snowflakes in the background. Again, this is nice for a subtle background if you have a busy card design. So here are those two backgrounds trimmed down. I love the look of these. So the first two examples I did with all the snowflakes, we did the die cut print on white cardstock. With these two backgrounds, we did our die cut print on a cardstock where we already had a print. So we layered two prints together. So that's one of the fun things with the gel press, is doing multiple prints on the same piece. So let's do another double print piece. This time I'm using Mermaid Lagoon, Wilted Violet, and Blueprint Sketch. And I'm applied just squares of inks, going back and forth, still with my inked brayer. It really doesn't matter if you're in the same color family. Going back and forth a bit, and make a print of this. I put a lot of ink down, so this will be a darker print. You can always put less ink down, move it back and forth with your brayer, and get a softer print if you prefer. Without cleaning our gel press, I'll do a second print. This will still pick up more ink. It'll be super light, but it'll be a great option for layering later on. I'm just using my brayer to kind of clean it off this way. It makes it easy. And there we have a really light print that we can use for another layered example. Okay, let's go put some more ink onto our press. This time I'm just doing a Blueprint Sketch. Kind of go back and forth with a little bit here with my brayer. And now I'm taking the center of that snowflake frame die that I showed you earlier. Just die cut from cardstock, lay that right in the center, and I'll take that light print we just made and lay that on top of the press. Now when you do this, you want to make sure you really push around the die cut because you want to get into the nooks and crannies of that die cut so most of the ink will transfer. So now we'll remove this and check this out. We have that light ink in the middle and darker ink around it, which will be a lovely one layer frame or background for a card. And we also have this inked die cut piece now. I love the way that printed ink looks on that. I just think that's really cool. So we're getting many cards out of these prints that we're making. Now, I still have ink on my brayer. Instead of letting it go to waste, you can make another print. And I really like the look of this too. So into that little bit of ink that just came off the brayer, I'm laying some Snowflake die cuts, and I'll take the print we just made and put that down too. Press all around that. And there we added some more interest to the center of that frame print that we did. So you can see how you can really build up layers. You can get multiple pieces. The ink goes a long way. So remember, you have ink on your press. You can use a couple times. You have ink on your brayer. Just keep using it and make as many prints as you can. Here's what it looks like when I've trimmed it down. It's such a beautiful look. And remember, you can step this up by adding stamping or additional die cuts, which I will focus on in my next video. Now, background dies are great for creating die cuts to use with your gel press. Here I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Stitching Panel die. This is a large die. Love this. And I just die cut it from white cardstock, and you have a bunch of little holes. Any background die would work for this though. So I'm putting down Chip Sapphire and Blueprint Sketch, going back and forth with my brayer. And then I will lay that white die cut cardstock right onto it. Then I will take the print that I made before that's got some dark blues on it and lay that on top and press around. Now, since those holes are so tiny, none of the ink really gets through the holes onto our cardstock that we laid on top. So you see, you don't have anything here, but watch. Now remove the dotted die cut and then put the print down. That's when we get all of that dot pattern transferring, and check out how cool that is. I will keep that background die cut so I can use it over and over again with prints because I really like the dots that it leaves behind. It's great for layering up prints on one piece. So there's a closer look when it's trimmed down, just a beautiful look. Okay, before we go on to some other techniques, let's do a few more examples of this. This time I'm using Peacock Feathers, Lucky Clover, and Mermaid Lagoon. I didn't put a whole lot down, a medium amount. Went back and forth with the brayer, and here we have a print that we can layer on top of. Such a beautiful look that is. This time I'm using the Simon Says Stamp new Simple Stem die. I really like the look of this. We'll use it for a background here, and then later I'll use the die to create the focal point image on the card, and that'll be in my next video. So I'm inking up my press again, this time with Lucky Clover and Mermaid Lagoon, and I'm going down with a more generous amount of ink so that this print will be darker than the last one. So I put the different color ink down, go back and forth a bit, and I'm laying down those single stem die cuts right onto the inked gel press. Then I will take the print that we just made with the same colors but a little lighter, lay that on top, press all around or use a brayer to really press it in, and look at the beautiful results. Then I still have a little bit of ink still on my press, so I will carefully remove my die cuts, which look how beautiful they are inked over there. I'll take another piece of white paper, lay that on top, press firmly around, and there we have that ghost-like print. It's kind of hard to see in the lighting in my video, but it will be beautiful for subtle background on a card. Okay, so I trimmed these prints down. I find that when I make a print, and if I'm unsure about it, I like to trim off all the excess. So I just have the inked portion, and then that's when I start to like it and envision how I'll use it on a card. So this next set of prints is a good reminder to use the ink left over on your brayer after you've used it on a gel press. So here I'm using my brayer to blend these colors together a bit on the background, not really blend, but move them a bit, and I get a print that way. But now I still have all that ink on my brayer and a little on my press still. So I'm just taking it and going back and forth a bit on to the press, and check out the print you get from this. I even like that one better. So don't let any of that ink go to waste. So let's use these along with the die cut. This time I have the Simon Says Stamp Detailed Rose. It's that large outline rose, the base of that rose, and then the leaf. I'm just going to use that outline leaf because I like the detail of it. Okay, so I'm inking up my press again. This time I'm using Mermaid Lagoon and Peacock Feathers. I put a light amount of ink down, went back and forth a bit. Now I'm laying some of those leaf white die cuts onto my press. You can use scraps for this if you want, any kind of colors, it doesn't matter. But by using white, you can then use the inked die cuts on your project too. So I put my light inked print down, and there we have another. Now I'll just trim that down to that center area, but first let's use the leftover ink on our press. I just carefully remove all of those die cuts and put a piece of white paper on top, and there we have our ghost-like version of it. Okay, so here's the trimmed down one. I really like the look of that. So remember, use that ink left over on your brayer and you can make even more prints. Okay, this next example shows that even intricate die cuts will work great with the gel press. This is the Simon Says Stamp Autumn Splendor. I die cut 2 from white cardstock, and I'll lay that onto my inked gel press. So here I put down Chip Sapphire, Lucky Clover, and I think that's peacock feathers. Went back and forth just a little bit with a brayer. And now I'm laying 2 of those die cuts down. I'm overlapping them in the center. That's okay because I will cover that area up on my final card with the sentiment. Now I'm laying down a pre-inked print that had the same colors but light. And there we have the print from that. Now that center is a little jumbled because I overlapped the die cuts, but again, I will cover that up when I turn it into a card. So this shows even intricate die cuts work wonderfully with the gel press. Before we move on to changing up the technique a bit, let me just show you some completed other backgrounds that I did. This is the Simon Says Stamp Jewel Snowflake, and here is a layered print that I did. So I just did light ink first with the gel press, then I re-inked the gel press, laid down some of the die cuts, and did another print, and you get that beautiful layered look. And I also did this one where with the leftover ink on my press, I just put on some white paper, and we have that ghost-like result that's just really beautiful for a soft background. Here's another that I did with the snowflakes. This is on a light inked print, just some excess ink that was left over. Then I laid down the snowflakes for another print. So they are always going to look different, and that's something fun about this technique. It's a great way to kind of give up control and have some fun creating. Okay, now let's do my favorite piece of the bunch, and this has several layers of ink, not just 2. So here I put down some ink. I actually took some off with the brayer over there on the scrap cardstock, so it was a little less ink. Then I'm laying down some snowflake die cuts, and we'll lay a fresh piece of white paper on top of that to get our first layer. Now, without cleaning the gel press, I'll just carefully remove the snowflakes and do another print right on top of that. This one will be very subtle since there's not much ink left, but you can see it there on the left, those ghost-like snowflakes. Now I'll take the ink that's left over on my brayer and just put it back onto my gel press for a light ink coverage. Then I'll lay down that dotted die cut, the same one I used many times, press it down with a brayer or your hand, and take that same layered print, press it down, and this will give us some soft dots in the background. So you can see how you can build these layers up and create beautiful masterpieces. So for this, you could either frame it or you could just do a simple sentiment on it. So I'll probably keep this card in my next video very simple, so a lot of the background will show. Okay, for my next few examples, I'm going to use the die itself on the ink gel press instead of the die cuts, and it gives a different look. So I've inked up my gel press as I've done many times in this video. I'll go back and forth with the brayer a little bit. Then I'm taking my die and laying the die with the cutting edge down onto the inked gel press. Once you put it down, leave it there, don't move it. And I'm putting down 3 snowflakes. I will then press these down gently into the gel press. And I used a little tool here just to make sure I pushed around all parts of the large die, because if you just press in the center, it doesn't really press down all the way. So then once I've pressed it, I can go ahead and carefully remove the die. And I'll show you a trick I figured out that makes it easier to remove it later on in this video. So now I'll press this die and carefully remove it, and the third die and carefully remove it. Okay, now I'll take a fresh piece of white paper and press it onto the gel press, and check this out. You get this really cool look where you had pressed the die down. It's a little bit different than we get by using the die cuts themselves. You get like these little outlines wherever the cutting edge of the die pressed down. So this would work great with really large background dies or any intricate dies. So let's try the same thing, but with that stitching panel die with all those little holes. So I'm inking up my gel press and I'll use the brayer. Notice that I didn't pop out all the little white dots in my background die, which will change the look of it, which I think is really cool. So see, all those white dots are still in there. That's fine. I'm laying the die down and just kind of pressing all over into the gel press. You don't need to press too hard, but I try to do an even amount of pressure around it. I then carefully lift up the die. You want to make sure it doesn't shift when you do it. Then you can take a piece of white paper or print you've already done, lay that on top, and check out the cool look you get. It's a very imperfect background, but I love it, especially because I left those white little dots in the die. It gives that variation around the outside edge. This is one of those that when you trim it down, it'll make a great background. And the nice thing is it's a different pattern than when you use the die cut instead of the die. Now there still is ink on my press, so I decided to just take another piece of white paper and press that down, and you can see the faint ink here and the dots are still there. And remember, I still have ink left over on my brayer, so I'm putting it back onto the gel press. I'll take the die cut version so I could have another dotted background left over, press that down, and then get another print. So remember, keep going. Use up all that ink and you can get multiple prints. So I find background dies and background die cuts are great for this. Now I thought it'd be fun also to try a plate die. This has got a pierced pattern in the background. So this isn't a cutting edge, it's just tiny little dots forming that pattern. And it gives a really unique result. So I'm inking up the gel press as I have many times. I use the brayer, and then I have the die cut that I used with that background die. So it's just white cardstock with pierced holes in it. I'm laying that pretty side down onto the gel press. To get even pressure over this die cut, I just took a piece of scrap cardstock and I'm laying that on top, and I'll press that down and even use my brayer on it. I want to make sure that all of that background die cut touches the gel press. So now I'll remove that die cut. Beautiful, by the way. We'll keep using that. Now I'm taking a fresh piece of white paper, laying that on the press and pushing it around. And what we get is this faint pattern of tiny little dots. And it's the pattern of the piercing on the die cut that we just used. So isn't that cool? Very subtle, but excellent for a soft background. I actually did two using this die cut, so you can see how beautiful it is afterwards because the little pierced holes stay white. And then you have ink all around it. So remember, that started as white cardstock. Then I got these two prints out of that. So you can see how it's just those tiny little dots of color on the very soft background. So any of your piercing plates are perfect for that. Again, these are background dies that don't cut. They just make those tiny little dots. So there you have a bunch of backgrounds that we created using the gel press, but remember, look at all of these die cuts that we have left over too to use on these backgrounds or on other cards. The inking on these is really unique. It's not like you just took a white die cut and inked it up with an inking tool or direct to paper. It's very different when the gel press is used. So if you look closely, you can kind of see the look of texture. And if you used a variety of colors of ink on a gel press at once, you get more mixture and more interesting look. But I try to stick to the same kind of color families. So there you have it, some fun ways to use dies and die cuts with your gel press. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's much more you can do, which I'll show in future videos. If you're interested in these products that I used today, they're linked below in my YouTube description. These dies are actually part of Simon Says Stamps Diecember, which is a whole month dedicated to die cutting. Remember to come back for my next video because I'll take all of these backgrounds and die cuts and turn them into cards. I'll also step some of the backgrounds up and give some tips for die cutting. If you're interested in learning more about the gel press, I have my gel press and stencil video here in the middle, and that one goes more into the gel press, so it's a good one to watch. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope you have a healthy week, and we'll see you again very soon with another video.